When someone hires a designer,
Right.
they're hiring you because of
Right.
your design eye, not taking on clients that have so much of a influence on what I'm doing that it takes over, so I can't be creative.
Hi, I'm Vikki Grodner, and I'm the college real estate coach. I'm thrilled to be here today with my client and friend, CJ Zucker. CJ is one of the premier interior designers here in the Tuscaloosa market, but has a really interesting story to tell on how she ended up in Tuscaloosa. So let's talk about, before your arrival here, tell us a little bit about your interior design business.
Yeah, I probably am not the typical, or maybe now it's becoming the typical interior designer that, I didn't go to school to become an interior designer. I've just always had that passion for interior design. And I was the kid that would rearrange my bedroom like every other month. And, but it does run in my family. My dad was a general contractor, built homes, custom homes for many, many years. My aunt's a very well-known real estate agent in the Portland, Oregon area. So a lot of this runs in the blood and in the family.
Right.
And, back in 2020, we moved to Idaho, and I had previous projects, Orange County, Southern California.
Orange County, so you were in
Yes.
California,
Yes.
and then Idaho.
Moved to Idaho in 2020, and then that's what really kind of projected me. People were really noticing more and more, what I was doing with my designs and with my own home, and then I actually worked on a huge real estate agent's home out there. And then I was on TikTok back then.
Okay.
So an influencer on TikTok had just mentioned, I'm moving into an apartment with my boyfriend. How do you afford this? And I said, you know what? This is an opportunity for me. And I just jumped at it. That's typically my personality. I just will jump into things. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, listen, I'll do it for free. All you have to do is talk, put my name out there or whatever.
Right.
And that really catapulted me. It sounds so bizarre, but
Not at all. No,
I
not
received 3 other clients, and everyone was in Florida. So I was in Idaho, and I was remotely designing homes, multi-million-dollar homes in Florida.
How fascinating.
So it was really, that's just basically how it just got going. And I said, you know what? My friends have always encouraged me to do this, and I'm just going to do it. And I got a lot of clients and just built and built and built. And I started remodeling bathrooms and kitchens and bedrooms and kids' rooms and all the things. And it just catapulted from there.
So let's jump forward. So now you live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So why did you make that transition from Southern California to Tuscaloosa?
Well, originally we had wanted to get out of California.
Yes.
And it didn't work in Idaho.
Yes.
So when our son was accepted and chose Alabama as his school, we said, well, let's buy an Airbnb. Let's buy a home to have as an Airbnb. And we'll figure out where we want to live.
Right.
And so we kind of followed him out. It wasn't he's not overly happy about it.
You were not the first, and you won't be the last parent that I hear who's followed their kiddo to college.
It's crazy, but we have so much fun in the fall, and it's just amazing. It's so beautiful here, and it's so green and windy roads, and that's what I love.
That's great.
It's what I didn't love about Idaho. It's very grid roads, very flat in the valley, not as green as I would love it to be, and here I get that. So we followed, and I just decorated our home that's supposed to be an Airbnb. And we went
You said that's supposed to be.
Supposed to be, because we went through Alabama football one season, and we just haven't left.
Right.
We're in love with it so much.
Yes.
It's addictive. It's crazy.
That's great.
So, with that being said, when we were actually renting our house for that first year, my husband had put on the parents page, that my wife is an interior designer. We have an Airbnb, and he would just post some of the photos. And from there, it just catapulted and
Yes,
snowballed
that's
into
great.
what it's become.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
That's great. And we have a mutual client
Yes.
in that I sold a lake house to one of my clients, and then you ended up designing
That's
that
right.
property for her and really kind of going in and rethinking every aspect of that house.
That is right.
Yes. So that was luxury real estate, and she now lives here part-time. But do you want to talk about that, and then we'll go back and talk about the Airbnb stuff?
Yeah. And so speaking of the parents page, we she had found me on that parents page.
Did she?
And she saw I think she saw a designer, and I think she saw, we were from California, which is where she's from. And so she reached out to me. We went to breakfast. I kind of just got to know her a little bit.
Yes.
And months, we would try to get together. It never really worked. And then ended up saying, listen, I have some homes that I want to look at. Do you want to, are you ready to do this? And I was like, oh my goodness. Well, yes, of course. And I not knowing what this project would even be.
Sure.
Is it a kitchen remodel? Is it a bathroom? Little did I know it was 10,000 square feet plus a boathouse and a full pool. And we had to be done in 3 months.
Right.
So,
right. Exactly. It was quite the project.
Yes.
But you did an exceptional job.
you.
So, and literally, talk a little bit more about like what you did in that 10,000 square feet. So you reimagined a lot of that space.
Yes, we did. So, just walking into the front foyer, it had a beautiful circular staircase, but it just didn't make sense. It had double doors opening up, but one of the doors opened right into that staircase. And I thought, this just doesn't make sense. There was a set of stairs in the back by the kitchen area, so I knew we had access to get up there. Right. And I thought, what a beautiful way when you first walk in this door to have this gorgeous 2-story chandelier that just drapes in all different areas, get woodwork on the walls, and have, one big circular gorgeous table to welcome you.
Right.
And that was like what I initially just said, listen, let's do that. And then not many people use a formal dining room or a formal living room much anymore. So for a 10,000 square foot house, we were working with a very small kitchen footprint.
Right.
There wasn't much counter space to work with. And so what we did was we took that dining room, and she needed an office.
Right.
So I took part of that dining room, gave her an office, and then gave her a hidden pantry off of that kitchen.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, she really needed that storage. We had a great team we had a great general contractor, Mark Hearing, that worked on everything. We did everything from electrical to paint, wallpaper, adding rooms, a whole movie theater downstairs to make sense. You name it, we added it and we did it. And we actually created a bathroom upstairs, so all bedrooms pretty much have their own bathroom.
Most of your projects are probably not quite that big.
No.
And so let's go back now and talk about it's kind of a simpler version.
Sure.
Which would be people that are investing. So whether it's people that want to have an Airbnb like you did, or parents who want to buy a place to come visit their student in a college town, or buy it for their own student to live in. Talk to me about how, obviously, you're going to have a much smaller budget, but in addition, what are some of the things that you try to do when you decorate those spaces? Maybe starting with an Airbnb.
Sure. I just finished actually an Airbnb down in Gulf Shores.
Okay.
So I basically needed to help with furnishing all of the rooms, helping with lighting fixtures, help with, actually we had to do some appliances in the kitchen, which, I was able to help and facilitate that. So I really try to find out what the client is looking for. Like if we're doing coastal, then we want to stay with those coastal things. If we're doing an Airbnb, which I'm working on right now, this is more of a bigger project because we have more construction going on.
Yes.
But for Airbnbs, it's all about like the location that they're going to be, right? So here in Tuscaloosa, it's Roll Tide all the way, right? Like,
exactly.
You cannot get away with that. So
I say this living room is like Where's Waldo, because we have 7 elephants in this living room.
Yeah.
But But I mean, they're tasteful.
They're inconspicuous. Right. And that's the way that I design for my Airbnbs. And so, for instance, we are Airbnb. I have a few elephants here and there.
Yes.
It's, I use blacks and whites and creams and, maybe a pop of red here or there, but I do not just go in your face with everything. You walk into some and you're like,
right.
Oh my
I
gosh.
call it throwing up Alabama, right?
Yes.
That's not really my aesthetic either, but
It's
I
too
know,
much.
but some people think that that's important or enjoy that. I mean,
They
for
do.
their own, for their own use.
And I think that that's where, you find a designer that suits your needs best. And so that's just, I could do it for somebody. It's just not something that I am passionate about or trying to bring something in a tasteful way to something.
Right.
So I am getting better at vetting clients a little bit more so I can pick and choose, if someone wants to go down a road that I don't feel is, authentic to me, then
you try to align your aesthetic without completely.
Yes.
Taking over.
There's correct. I'm not going to take over, but when someone hires a designer, they're hiring you because of your design eye.
Exactly.
And so what I've learned through this is not taking on clients that have so much of a influence on what it does, what I'm doing, that it takes over so I can't be creative. Right. It's more their creativity versus what my creativity is. So you got to really evaluate what are you hiring an interior designer for, because it's a luxury, right? It's not something that you have to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good idea, though.
Yeah, it is. I think everyone should have one. Or even, a lot of designers do designer for the day, and they can ask them questions. How do they, what should I do for my window treatments? Where, would I get this? Or what would you do in this room? It's an odd shape. Those kinds of things are really, a lot of designers do that as well.
Right. Yep. And so, again, just sticking with the Airbnb theme for a minute, functionality is important. And so, are there creative things that you've done in Airbnbs or that you're going to be doing in the one you're working on now to maybe maximize heads and beds? Or, what do you do to make it more functional? Is it important to have a dining table, or is there some other option? So, just think about for Airbnbs.
Sure. You always have to take that into consideration. So it's really a balancing act, because the last thing, me personally, when I go into an Airbnb, I don't want to walk into a space and go, there's just throw up of beds everywhere.
Right.
That make no sense. You'll go into a bedroom and there'll be 7 beds and they're not even, made well, or they don't match. They have different bedding on each one of the beds. And
we see that a lot in Tuscaloosa. People will put beds in closets to try to set them up as bedrooms, but you got to walk through the bedroom to get to the other bedroom, right?
It doesn't make sense. So, I always tell people, you can cram as much as you want in here.
Right.
But the thing is, does that really benefit your guests?
Right.
Exactly. Does it really, are they going to be upset that you put a bed in a closet that you have to walk through? Is that, over advertising yourself on something that's truly not a bedroom kind of thing? So it's a balancing act, right? And you need to be aware of, furniture quality. I do get a lot of my stuff for Airbnbs on Wayfair. I think Wayfair has, it used to be down here and it is up here now. They have so many good vendors that they use now.
Right.
It's wild, to be honest with you. So you can get very low grade or you can get very high grade. So it's all dependent on the client's budget. But with saying that, I am very, very good at researching the item that's on there, looking at the reviews, going through them and seeing what other people are saying about that item. And that's what I base everything off of. I also don't base my photos off of the actual photo that Wayfair is showing. I base it off of the client or the customer photos.
Oh, that's
so then I can
good.
actually see what it truly looks like in a home.
That's really smart.
Yeah.
That's really smart. What about things like if a place can sleep 6 or sleep 8, Do you need to have 6 or 8 places for people to be able to eat? Things like that, that kind of functionality. Because I think that's also frustrating, right? You'll sleep 8 people, but you've only got 2 bar stools or something
Correct.
crazy.
So it's a balancing act, and it's all dependent on the home that they purchased, right? So our personal Airbnb, it can seat, our table can seat 2, 5. I have 2 extra chairs in other rooms, so 6, 7. But our Airbnb sleeps 10.
Okay.
But we have a small table in the back room that seats 4. So, it's all dependent on what that home is like, too.
Of course.
I think where people fall is by not offering any seating, where you said like 2 bar stools.
Right.
But if you have a small island that's in your kitchen, how can you fit more? You can't fit more on that, right?
Correct.
So you have to be creative with knowing like where can you put a table? Can you not put a table? And then here's the other thing is that you have to be willing to take the negative reviews or the critiques
Yes.
off of that. And if you're providing everything else with luxurious bedding, comfortable beds, clean, airy, fresh, all the other things, if, there's not enough seating for, at a dining room table, you might have to weigh that in and say, is that something I'm willing to take the critiques for?
Right.
Right?
Right. The other thing, I don't like to use the word cute because that feels, I don't know, just kind of silly. But I think it's really important that things photograph well as well for an Airbnb or a short-term rental, right?
Yes.
So how do you try to make sure that what you're putting into a home or a condo not only functions well, but also looks good enough to photograph in a way that's going to jump off the page or have an impact?
Right. So less is more,
Yes.
right? You do not want a cluttered home. I've seen, and when those photos are being taken, you need to either make sure you have a professional that knows how to take the proper photos with lighting
Yes.
and everything, or the way, cell phones are now, you have so many amazing apps that can lighten and brighten photos that you can use as well if the budget doesn't allow that. So there's options for you to do that, but you do not want, stacks of magazines. You don't want, grandma's tchotchkes everywhere. You want, very minimalistic, but still making it with character, right? You don't want to take it so it's like sterile, like
You
a
don't
hospital.
want it to be austere, yeah. Yeah, right.
It's a fine line, right? You need to stay right into the middle and balance the two.
Right. Any thoughts about a game day, or what we call a game day in Tuscaloosa? So people don't necessarily rent that out, but it might be a place that they come and visit just for football games, or when they come to visit their student 2 or 3 other times during the year. Anything different about the way that you decorate something like that?
For a game day home, TVs, let's just be real.
Yes.
Very large TVs are very important. Not that they're necessarily watching the games, for they're usually out on the quad or, at the game itself or whatever.
Right.
But having those types of things are very, very, very important. And they need to be large and on scale, for people to enjoy football and such. In our personal Airbnb, we don't have any TVs in the bedrooms. We might install one we have one room that's 2 double beds.
Okay.
And we actually have, we paid for an outlet to be put up there so we can put a TV there.
Right.
Once we're ready to start renting again,
Yes.
we will. But that one we called the kids room.
Yes.
And I think that's important, something to kind of keep the kids at bay and keep them,
Right. If they're not
entertained.
interested in that game.
Right.
and
We
they
also
wanna
have,
watch.
PlayStations and stuff like that at
Yes.
ours. So then
Yes.
kids can, enjoy, kids always game. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Any other thoughts about decor in a college town?
I think, whatever college town you're going for, you just want to stay very neutralized with it. You don't want to, in my personal opinion, I just don't, I just don't blast it
Even though
everywhere.
you and I both are like representing
I know.
Alabama today
We did
with
not
the
plan
colors.
this today. This did not. I didn't call her up and ask her what she was wearing today, but it just ended up happening this way. But no, I mean, I think that, just even the way that you very tastefully decorate your own home with, elephants here. But I'm looking at one that it's wood tones and very classy and very
an antique marionette
it's
elephant.
beautiful. It's beautiful. So, those are kinds of pieces that I find that I've added. I have I think 2 elephant photos, and one is like a black and white. Mm-hmm. I'm not into these cartoony, photos,
right.
It has to be very, what's the word I'm trying to say? It's just
impactful, but not in a garish way, maybe?
yes.
Yeah.
Loud. You don't want
Yes.
anything overly crazy. And the guests, I also leave a guest book at mine where they can write in, and
Yes.
I think that that's super fun.
Yes.
And honestly, the majority of people who've written in there, off the 6, 7 guests that we've had, have all said it's so tastefully done.
That's great.
And I think that people appreciate that.
Right. Something I've done in my own homes and with clients is to find an image of an elephant or even a big owl here, our mascot, but then have it printed in black and white at FedEx office.
Yeah.
It costs you just a few dollars, and then you frame it correctly, and it looks like $1 million, but it's still, so there's little tricks like that as well.
Well, and that brings up a great point. So I don't just decorate with elephants.
Right.
So what
exactly.
I do, I have a shop that I use religiously, and they have a black and white photo of Denny chimes. They have all these things that mean a lot. Bryant Denny Stadium.
Right.
They're gorgeous. And then I have my clients frame them. We put them with matting, and then we do a beautiful collage. Another thing that I do that I'm known for is, talking about the students or where people are from.
Yes.
I have a source that I use, and I do black and white maps from the location of where you were born or where you were located.
Oh, I
so
love
for
that.
instance, I do a lot of, college kids. I have my little Facebook page, and it's called After the Dorm.
Oh, yes.
And,
great.
Tuscaloosa and Bama, so you got to get out of the dorms after your freshman year. It's you're in, you're out,
Absolutely. Right, exactly.
And so all these kids need a place to move, and they need a place to live. So a lot of times they have roommates, and my signature is to always do maps from each one of the locations. So in front of my son's roommates in his place, his says Laguna Beach, his friend says San Francisco, and his other friend is from Tennessee.
Okay.
So it's all 3 of them, and they're in the living room. They have big black and white maps, and they just look really cool. Another girl from Kentucky, her whole place was pinks and blues.
Yes.
So theirs were pink going up the stairwell. And so it's just something personalized for the kids to feel it's still part of their home, and that's where they're from. So
Right. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
So, well, CJ, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Talking about decor. We will provide links to your page and to other resources you've mentioned, so that people can know how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I'm Vikki Grodner, and I'm the College Real Estate Coach.